right, so welcome back to Crestview Leads, a podcast where I, Tim Bolduc, the city manager for the city of Crestview, get to talk to anybody I want, pretty much about anything I want.
So you'll just let anybody come that wants to
I
come?
let anybody come in here, yes. And so my guest for this particular episode is Dr. Devin Stephenson from Northwest Florida State College. Dr. Stephenson's a good friend of mine, mentor of mine, somebody I've had a chance to get to know over the last couple of years. We're always tied up in some mess somewhere. Trying to talk people out of money most of the time.
That's exactly what we do.
That's what we do. So Dr. Stephenson is going to come today, and he's going to talk to us, or we're going to chat a little bit about organizational change. So one of my favorite comments that Dr. Stephenson made was about how some people are just organizational terrorists.
They are.
And so that started us down a path of commiserating together about what it is to try to get an organization on track, and then moved into what we really are supposed to be doing. So before we get started, though, Dr. Stephenson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, before we do that, I just want to let you know that I knew that you weren't very selective with your guest when you called and asked me to be on.
Is that it? Yeah. I was desperate.
You were scraping the bottom, right?
I was. Right. It took a lot of no's to get to you.
There we go. But at least I'm on, right?
That's it. You're here. Yes.
I'm a part of the select group.
That's it.
So I've been in higher ed my entire career. I started as a director of financial aid, working at a student services office.
Okay.
And then worked in admissions, and just sort of fell in love with this, making a difference in people's lives. That's what we do. Some people say we're in an education business, but we're really in a people business.
Absolutely.
It's trying to just like you are. You're in a people business, trying to make a better way of life for people. And so I liked that work. I went back and got my master's degree. And then I began to observe some college presidents, and I thought, if they can do that,
right,
I can do it.
Right.
And so I got my doctoral degree, and I was encouraged by a mentor of mine who mentored me for 35 years. Wow. Because they say, real leaders come from those who take people under their wing,
right,
and advance them. That's the majority of people will tell you that. Not that they were born to be a leader, or not that they were just thrown in it, but in my case, I was mentored to do this job. And so,
so was this at the college where you
got
in
started?
Alabama? Okay,
at the college. And so a presidency came open, and I went in the state of Alabama, and I went to my president and said, "Look, I'd just like to apply for that." Right. And he said, "All right, let's do it." And so he sort of helped me through the process, and the first application out, I got an interview and went all the way to the finals. Now, for college presidencies, normally the rule is that you apply 10 times before you even get an interview. So I nailed it on the first try.
Very good.
But I didn't get the job, but I learned a lot through the process. The next couple were really good for me, and I ended up a president in Alabama, and then in Missouri, then in Kentucky, and over 7 years ago came to Northwest Florida, this has been the most phenomenal experience I've ever had. But that's sort of how I ended up starting in basic student services, and then just learning lots about the college, and then having this desire to really lead.
Right. University of Alabama graduate?
I am.
Roll Tide?
Roll Tide.
How do we feel about the football season this upcoming year?
Well, I think DeBoer's going to do a great job.
Yeah. I would be disappointed if you said anything else.
Yeah. It's hard to follow in the footsteps. Here's what they say. If there's a great leader, you never want to be the person that goes behind them.
Right.
You want to be the next person.
Right, the person behind the person.
The person behind the person. And so I really thought, this is big shoes to fill here. But as you know, Saban is right there along, coaching along. And
it'll be interesting to see how that works.
Yeah.
It's tough when, even when I came, obviously not even remotely closely compared, but when I came here, I know that I was the hardest on the portion of the city that I managed the closest before, and so for me, I'll be interested to see, because he won't be Saban, so it'll be interesting to see if he can adapt and take the good things.
That's right.
If Saban can adapt,
that's
honestly. Right. Because he likes to control things. I think
no question.
Kind of the pattern. So,
the signs look really good from
what
I read every night about what's going on with the practices and that kind of thing.
Right.
It seems to be a really good thing.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
Sure.
So University of Alabama, master's and doctoral degree, both from the university.
Right. So then you came here, and so we got to the place where you came here, and one of what I really wanted to kind of dig into today is organizational change, right?
Yeah.
So I took this job. I was the city of Fort Walton Beach's public works director.
Yeah.
Applied for this job. My friends were like, "Why on earth would you do that? Nobody wants to be the first guy either." And so I said, "Nah, I think it'll be a good idea. They won't know if I'm bad or not." So did that and came out here. And as soon as I got here, I figured out very, very quickly that all the things I thought I could fix at the last place were in much better shape than they were at this place because this place didn't have any systems.
Yeah.
And then, you came in after a little bit of a rocky road here at Northwest Florida as well. Right. And so when was this your first go in at having to really do organizational change, or in the past schools, did you experience some?
A lot of people where I've been have called me the fixer.
Okay.
And so I had to do that at an institution in Alabama. I went to Missouri that was really divided up, and we made some good positive changes. The institution at Kentucky was in pretty good shape. Now, we certainly employed.
So you were bored there?
Yeah.
That's what happened.
They only spent a year and a half there, and with no intentions of leaving. But I received a call about this institution.
Okay.
And I'm not so sure. I think the lion's share of the search committee had graduated from the University of Alabama, and that didn't hurt, right?
That's good.
I don't really think that was it. I do believe that they knew they had. Here's what they said. Number one, we want you to get out of the office and make friends.
Right. You're like right up my alley.
Get out of there. And number two, we want you to bring money back from Tallahassee.
Right.
Do those two things. And the third thing, forgot about this, we want a strategic plan because we haven't had one in many years.
Okay, yeah.
And so I laid those out. After that, I met with every board member and I said, what are your push points? I want to know, what do you...
Right. What's important to you?
What is important to you? But it was all settled. Get out of your office and make friends. Build relationships. Bring money back from Tallahassee. And doggone it, get us a strategic plan that we can live by. And so
that's the board, but the people who actually have to execute it probably.
They don't want change.
They don't want change. Why not?
Well, there's two reasons.
Right.
People either fear change,
right,
or they don't want to put out the effort to change.
Right.
And it's those two things. You'll hear a lot of folks say, "I'm just afraid of change."
Yeah.
But a lot of it is the effort because people are very traditional.
Sure.
They get, as my grandmother used to say, an old Alabama term, they get sot in their ways. They get set in their ways, And so they don't want to change, and they don't want the effort to change. So that you have that, and they don't want anything to affect their surroundings or their interactions. It's that back to that old book, Who Moved My Cheese? Nobody wants your cheese moved. And so what I always try to do is make a better way of life, but I know at the first, you've got to lay a lot of fears about that happening. And being new, that was not as easy because they didn't know me well enough to trust me.
Oh, absolutely. And we both know that trust is that key. You got to have that.
It's the key.
But the issue with that is it's not anything you can force. Trust is something you can only get when you learn, when it's earned.
Yes, that's right.
And so it takes time to do that. And the only way you actually get it, and actually we talked about, I had an opportunity to do a class for Quint Students Group today. And what I was telling those people is when you go back and you empower your employees, I want you to empower your employees not only to do what you're telling them to do, give them the resources, but empower them to fail so that they can see you be a good leader in their failure. And that's, because that's the trick, right? What people are afraid of taking risk, we make them take risk. If things go wrong when they take that risk and then we try to come after them for it, then we've lost any opportunity to gain trust.
That's right.
We get it when they see us continue to honor them and pull out greatness in them when they're not doing exactly what they're supposed to do.
That's exactly right. And what I try to say to our folks at the college is no harm, no foul. I'd rather you be out doing things than for me to have to push you out the door every morning to get things done. Come on, let's get with it. And then if we make a mistake, we'll just readjust. So I developed, since we've talked, what I call the 4 T's to that as a leader.
Nice.
So first of all, you have to train people to do the work. And
Absolutely.
I know you are a master
That's what we
of
do.
this.
Right.
You train them. And then the next piece is you trust them to do the job. That's like empower them and trust them to do the job. And here's the magic. The third one, which you're talking about, is to turn them loose.
Right.
So train them, trust them, turn them loose to do the job. And then when they do that good job, the 4th T is you thank them. You affirm them to do the work. Now, every time they don't get it right, because young leaders, emerging leaders don't always realize when it's right to strike, when it's right to move. It's that sense that we get sometimes as mature leaders, and I like to think myself as a mature leader.
Right.
I want to. I know you're definitely one.
Only in age.
Yeah, we know when to step. We know when to take that adventurous step. And here's the deal. That adventurous step may look like you're stepping off onto nothing to the younger emerging leaders. But you and I have that sort of seventh sense, having done this so long, we know it's the right step to take.
Yeah.
And we take it until it becomes something.
Yeah, it's funny. I had a conversation with one of my department heads this week, and going into a meeting, I said, "Hey, listen, I need you to get this particular infographic document done for me. I think we're probably going to need it in the future." And he said, "Well, what do we need it for?" I said, "I just got a feeling." Sure enough, we go into a meeting Monday night, and if I'd have had the infographic, we'd have been in a lot better place. Well, none of that comes from anything other than just experience sometimes breeds within us this ability to kind of see around the corner, and that's what you're talking about.
That's exactly right.
It turns into a great teaching moment.
It is.
But give me those 4 T's again. They were
we have to train
them,
trust them, and then you have to turn them loose, because you can't be like a helicopter boss. You can't hover over them. You've got to let them go. And then the fourth one, you got to thank them.
Yeah.
And that's perhaps the most important one, giving those kudos, giving those back slaps and great job. Keep doing it. I'm really proud. And here's something I do. I affirm them privately, either on the phone or in an email. But then when I get in a large meeting, I make sure I tell them in front of their peers.
Absolutely.
Because I want people to know that I do care. And you've heard this said a million times. People do not care how much the president of the college knows until they know how much I care.
100%.
It's the who of the organization that makes it tick.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what level anywhere you are. If you're trying to help raise your kids, if you're trying to help grow employees, if you're mentoring somebody, if you don't respect them, they don't respect you, then they certainly don't care what you have to say. So when you when you're going through this process of organizational change, has it been your experience that more tenured employees are easier to get on board, harder to get on board, or is it so what? And so we think that's because of the fear we talked about.
Yeah, and I think over a long period of time, if you're in an organization that is static.
Right.
If you're in an organization that hasn't moved very much, that every day is just the same thing over and over, and there's no challenge or no new expectation for that person,
right,
they get really comfortable, very comfortable. And so if you jar that comfort, I heard one college president recently say, we're not here to afflict, we're not here to comfort the afflicted. We're here to afflict the comforted.
That's awesome. That's pretty good. I like that.
So when people get really comfortable, they get real lazy.
Yeah.
They move into a sort of a stage of mediocrity, and they're not pushing the boundaries. And so I like change.
Right.
As long as I've been doing this, I encourage my people to push me beyond.
You and I are disruptors, and so we kind of thrive in that area of change.
Yeah.
Something interesting, Dr. Stephenson, that I've been messing around with lately. Something I've been paying attention to is when I go into a division that I'm trying to work and bring along to our goals, our mission, our vision, all that stuff. I'm looking for those influential leaders inside the organization that I see the potential for them to come on board. We have, because a lot of times, or most of the time, when we look at an organization, it's not going the direction we want it to. It gets very easy to just go, well, the people don't want to do what they want to do. But the reality is, most people want to do a good job. And a lot of those same people that are in that comfort zone you're talking about, 10 years ago, they wanted the place to be better. They just got beat back by apathy.
That's exactly right.
And so they could not get out of it. And so they just became what they feared or hated the most.
Yeah.
So what I've been doing lately, and what I've seen I'm really enjoying, is finding those a couple of different people in the organization that are within that whole drop period or right at the end of their careers, and going and saying to them, hey, what would it take for you to make these last 2 years, these last 5 years, these last 18 months the best that you've ever had? And it's interesting to me to watch them, because you live in a world where the drop is, where this corporate closure drop program, which can be evil, also can be good, but it also can be evil. And so what I've found is not everyone's going to do it, but the ones that I was able to connect with turn around and they come back with these great ideas that are probably going to move us in the direction of our mission. And so I've been trying to empower them to do it. And it's been fun to watch. Some of them get excited, some of them don't, but some of them get real excited. And my goal is to turn that idea or that concept of I've only got 28 shifts left before I leave into, man, I've only got 28 shifts left before, and I got to get this stuff done. And we do that, I think, by reminding them about what they used to be excited about, trying to connect it to what we're doing and putting them to work.
That's exactly right. So it has to be more, to be frank, and you know this, more than a job. There has to be some kind of organic, it's an ecosystem within the department that makes them an appropriate fit, but a contributor to success.
Right.
So what you immediately look for when you're introducing a concept, and believe me, I've done organizational changes and administrative restructures like crazy over there. You get the resistors, you get the rejectors, you get the opposers, and then there are those that are the adopters. And they may look cautiously, but then when it all settles out, then they say, you were right. You're right. It's all worked out just like we think it should.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. And one of the most significant things that happened to me is when I decided to do a reorganization of our student success division, and we did a $3 million renovation of a building that was the newest building on campus. And so when I got there, I had been a student success person, being a dean of students and a financial aid person. And the college had built these walls up with little like bank teller or jail windows.
Right.
And so for a student to talk to anybody, they had to go look through these jail bars, And I thought, we've got to immediately break that down and make this a real comfortable place for students where we sit at the same level, we talk at the same level. Well, that just really infuriated some people. And so they began to write letters to the newspaper, and here I am trying to make change that I think is going to be good, knowing down deep in my soul that this is the right thing to do, and I will prove it to you.
Right.
I'm going to prove it to
you.
you.
Give me enough time and we'll find out.
And so, unfortunately, I made the huge mistake of getting in the newspaper and being quoted as calling, and I didn't know who they were. These people were sort of silent assassins,
Right.
But they were also what I called organizational terrorist.
I love it.
And I want to tell you, there are a million times I wish I'd never said that in the newspaper. Was it true? Absolutely.
Right.
They weren't willing to trust me, but I hadn't been there long enough for them to trust me. You know? So it makes sense.
Fair enough, yeah.
But over time, that reorganization yielded at least 95% of those people back making more money than they were making. And it's been the absolute best thing for the institution. We turned into a growth mode, and now we're 7 consecutive semesters of double digital growth. Our customer service surveys are off the chain. It was the right thing to do at the right time for the right reason. The 3 R's.
There you go.
Right time to do it for the right reason at the right time.
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. So I love that story for a couple of different reasons. One, because I say a lot of really dumb things that get me in all kinds of trouble.
Yep.
One of the most nerve-wracking parts about this podcast is that I'm liable to say something real stupid, and then my team is going to be like, "I can't believe you said that."
Yeah.
But what it reminds me of is it doesn't matter at what level of success you're at or where you are, that those things happen. You can and you can recover from them. But what makes people like yourself, people like myself, do that is because we have so much belief in them, not only what we're doing, but in the people that we're trying to take to where we want to get them. Like, I believe you're going to be successful. Just stop being whiny.
That's right.
Trust me, if you can get to where if you believe in yourself as much as I believe in you, we're going to do great things together. Right. And so, you get a little fired up when they don't want to do that and they become terrorists.
Well, as an emerging leader, as anyone that works in an organization, you've got to be willing. You've got to be willing to be teachable.
Absolutely.
And that's why I believe the lifelong learning aspect of leadership is a critical piece. Because there was a day, Tim, when I was a transformational leader. I was proud to be a transformational leader.
Right.
And then I got put in certain places to fix things, and I became a transactional leader because I had to make these decisive transactions to move it forward. And now I realize that every organization, there's a season for everything. We just came through a season of repositioning. Now we're in a season of advancement. But what I know now is, yes, there was a season when I became a transformational leader and it worked. There was a season when I became a transactional leader, and it worked. Doesn't work now as much as being a change leader.
Yeah, that's
being
so good.
able to manage the change effectively and bring in people along with you. And a change leader has to keep the people close by. They have to be followers. Otherwise, if they're not followers, they become distant observers.
Right.
And so you don't want that out of your team, you know. So I think you are definitely a change leader. You've got the ability to be able to transact, of course, and you're a great transformational leader. But change is where we are right now.
Sure.
And if we're not willing to be flexible, adaptable, and available, we are not going to be successful.
I like that. I want to make sure that we get that point across too, because when we're kind of officiating or steering change or whatever it is that we are doing as the person who's responsible for that, we have to remember that we have to be open to change as well.
Absolutely.
And that part of the equation, I think, sometimes gets missed because success does breed success. And so if you get a little bit and I think the reason success breeds success is because winning is addictive.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so
yes.
if you get something across the finish line, you're going to want to do that again. And it's very easy to automatically go back to the same way you did it.
Absolutely.
We did have an era where Mike Shula was the coach at Alabama, and he would run the same package from the 5-yard line over and over again and never scored with it. But we kept running it because eventually we were going to get across the board.
Yeah.
What do they call it? The jumbo package or something?
The odds were not in our favor.
I named my dog after Shula. I was so unhappy with that for a stretch. That wasn't her real name, but that's what I called her because I was tired of him. But the point of that is he great coach, great pedigree, great guy.
Oh, yeah.
But he got into a rhythm of doing the same thing that had worked once or twice, and he never got out of it.
And that's insanity, right?
It is. But it's very cool to think about it from the perspective. If you're going to be an agent of change or a leader of change, you have to be willing to change.
I read a great quote, and I brought it today, and I want to read it. It says, "The ceiling fan proves that you can be high up, move in the right circles, blow a lot of air, and never go anywhere."
I like that. I know some ceiling fans.
You know some, right?
I do.
Just like some PFDs or PDF.
Yeah. Poor financial
decision makers. But I know a lot of ceiling fans.
Yeah.
They're really beautiful.
Yeah.
They move a lot of air. Feel pretty good to be around them. But they, as we say in Alabama, they ain't going anywhere. They're going nowhere.
And
so we have to find, in my opinion, those adopters that are going to go with us. Now, you know yourself, in any organization, there are going to be people that are going to go with the flow. Right. And if you change, they will change. Now, they're going to be the followers more.
Sure.
But they're going to go with you if you give them a reason. I've always believed you have to give people a reason why you're doing what you're doing. You can't just come out here and autocratically say, we're going to do this. This is the reason we're going to do this.
We're going to do this, and this is where it's going to take us, and this is how it's going to help you.
There are measures. Stephen Covey said you better have a cadence of accountability, a period of time where you're going to be accountable and you're going to show people those numbers. What do those numbers say? I'm always asking why to our institutional research people.
My chance guy asks me why all the time. That's I got to get
smart.
I got to get over there and do the Working Genius with you guys at the college. I told you about that program, but one of those Working Geniuses is what we call Wonder, and it's the guy who's always asking why.
Yeah, and you have to give a reason. Otherwise, you're just going in circles. You're just spinning around like the ceiling fan.
Yeah,
it's just sitting there going around and around, going nowhere. So I believe you have to identify who are those people. You said something earlier, I think, that was really strong. And you said you have to find the influencers in an organization, because there are some that speak, and when they speak, they're like E.F. Hutton. Everybody listens.
That's right.
And so if you can affect change with them, prep them for what's coming, and get them, they're embedded in the organization with where your personnel are, and let them start speaking the positive words that make the difference. If it's nothing but, listen, we need to trust Tim. We need to trust Devin. They've been around. They've looked at this thing, and they're going to probably ask your opinion. And I've done that many times because I am not a know-it-all. I want to know what is the best solution to what we're doing.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite, or maybe of late, it's one of my pet projects is to identify that person within the group that I think, because there's some of them that are, influential leaders doesn't mean they're good, but it also doesn't mean they're bad.
All right.
And so like what I'm always looking for is that one that loves the organization and what how they see what the organization stands for, And then I try to sit down with them and go, okay, look, I know you love this place. I know you want it to be the best that it can possibly be. What would that look like for you? And most of the time, Devin, when we can get them to go from what their mindset is and take them to where we're going, right? And so like in your particular case with the windows for the student experience, in that conversation or in that opportunity, there was probably somebody there that we could have said, hey, tell me what you would do better. Well, I want, once they get a chance to have a part of it, we love to talk about buy-in. I talk about buy-in. It's, it's in all the books, but I'm on this new kick also. Instead of saying, look, I want to get buy-in from my team, I want ownership. Because here's the deal. I can sell ice to an Eskimo for a short period of time, right? What's Tommy Boy say? Ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. I can sell whatever I need to sell for a period of time. But if I'm not in front of you, you'll sell my idea for the next idea. Yeah. Because if that's why you're on board is because you bought what I'm selling you, then you're going to get sold again. And so what I'm trying to get our team to understand is we want to get to the place where they don't just buy into it, but they own it. So that means it's their idea too. They're the ones helping us shape what that change looks like.
So a lot of people live in what I call a me culture. And that is, I'm always thinking about how does this affect me?
Right.
And let's just face it, we're sort of naturally drawn to that.
Of course.
How does this affect me?
Yep.
And what I think the biggest challenge for a leader is in this day and time is to be able to flip the me culture, take that word me and make the M a W, flip that M upside down so people think of the we culture. Right. How does this impact all of us? Right. I want to know how my vice presidents feel about a landmark change that we're about to make. We're looking right now at salary increases for the coming year. And we know we've got some inequities in different areas. We have faculty, we have staff, we have professionals, we have executives, and we're looking at how do we treat people in the right way, and what are those outliers, and we're looking at the we of the organization.
Collectively, how do we decide
not me. It's not about me at all. Yeah. I want our people to be comfortable because I know if I take care of them, they're going to produce, and they're going, as you said, they're going to be committed to the mission of the organization. And if they're that, they'll get up every morning, come in there with a happy smile and help all the students and be able to get along really well with folks.
I do 100% believe that we all have a natural tendency to be selfish.
Absolutely.
It's very obvious. If you've ever met anybody, that's the case. I also think at the same time, though, that there is something within all of us that wants to be a part of something bigger than us.
No question.
Right? So we definitely, now, the question is how much of the uncomfortable can somebody tolerate to get to the greatness?
Yep.
And that, that's always a big question, right? Like, can I put in the, I've recently lost some weight, right? So how many times did I have to decide not to have the chicken tenders before I was actually going to lose that? Well, what happens though is if you can get them to tolerate that place where they don't want to be for a certain period of time, and they start to see success, again, success breeds more success because winning is addictive.
Yep.
And so then they begin to say, you know what, those chicken tenders aren't worth it because I already know what I mean, chicken tenders are worth it.
Yeah, they really are.
They really are. But you begin to say, I've put all this effort to bring us to this place. Why would I undo it? And also, if you can get them, they're not, the worst thing inside of an organization is the people in the organization talking bad about it.
Oh, that's terrible.
But if they own who we are and where we're going, then they're going to be a lot less apt to talk bad about it.
That's right.
Part of the reason you do such, you and I both are all on branding, and we do good branding and try to push that out, is because if people own who we are, if they're going to choose the view. If they're going to choose the view.
Northwest Florida.
Yeah, you got facing the wrong way. If they're gonna choose the view, then and that's their idea, and their becomes a part of their identity, they're going to be less apt to talk bad about it.
That's exactly
they're not
right.
going to talk bad about themselves.
You also have to remember that people that live in a sphere of excellence, literally drive people that live in mediocrity crazy, and people that live
and vice versa,
and vice versa. That's exactly right. And so, what happens when you succumb to mediocrity? You quit attracting top talent. And so you got to keep pushing people toward it. And you just said it wonderfully, being able to explain it to people. When one ship rises in the harbor, all of them rise. And so that's what we have to be able to do. And it's a we culture, not a me culture.
Yeah, I had a good friend of mine. We lost him during COVID, but he was a business owner here in Crestview. His name was Bill Tonin. And every time I would talk to him about our downtown development, right now you had to come through our construction zone for Main Street. That work's going on right now. Well, that was one of his visions for our community that unfortunately he didn't get to see. But he would always tell me that he started with a coffee shop, then he bought a restaurant, and he was constantly investing downtown. And what he was saying is exactly what you're saying. Look, a rising tide raises all boats. If I'm going to live here and then I'm going to invest here, and I'm definitely not going to talk bad about here.
Exactly.
And that's the same thing's true in our professional careers. If we're a part of something bigger than ourselves, then it becomes a lot easier for us to defend it when the time comes. Because you're not in the room all the time. Even if they trust me, even if they trust you, I can't be in the room all the time. I need those influencers to help that change continue to move.
That's exactly right. I read a lot of quotes from different people. Vince Lombardi once said, "You will never catch perfection. But if you chase perfection, you will catch excellence." And so sometimes people are not driven to that same level that you and I are.
Sure.
I get a perverse delight out of watching our organization grow.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And out of being able to brag about our organization, not about me. For me, it's saying, this is what our team does. And so anytime I'm in front of the team speaking, I basically say this. I get all the newspaper pictures, I get all the TV interviews, but it's really you that's making all this happen. It's not me. I'm just the face of this, and not a good face anyway, but
that's what we're going to work with.
But you are responsible. And I call them the who of the organization. If the who is good and the who's working together, we're going to be successful.
Good. So we're just about out of time, believe it or not. I knew you and I could fill 30 minutes easily.
Let's go 30 more.
Yeah, it's for sure. But so what I want you to do is you got just a couple of minutes. I want you to give a piece of advice to an emerging leader that needs to help their organization change. What is a good piece of advice? What do you want them to take away from this podcast?
So I brought several notes, but there were several notes that were very salient in the work here. And I think for any leader out there, and I'm looking in this camera right here.
There you go. That's
for you have to be intentional. We've talked a lot about thinking about things. Thinkers, that's a great start. It's a great place of incubation, but doing is what really works. You've got to be intentional about it. And here's what I would say to you. You've got to be willing to reset, restart, readjust, and refocus as many times as possible. And I think about myself. In a day's time, how many times do I reset? That stinking attitude, maybe I woke up with the morning, from something that happened the night before or the day before. I have to reset that. I have to readjust. I have to refocus. And you have to do that as many times as it takes to be successful. And so I think being intentional and willing to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to adjust to get there is the strongest advice I could give anybody. Being flexible in this day and time is critical to be a successful leader.
I had a pastor that used to say, if we all stay a little flexible, nobody gets bent out of shape.
There you go. I like it.
I love that.
Like
Man, Dr. Stephenson, Devin, I appreciate you coming in. Again, I appreciate you and the influence you have on me and the time that we get to spend together. I know you're a busy guy coming all the way up here and hanging out with us.
I'm honored to do it.
Means a lot. So had a good time. We'll get you back on.
I want to come back.
If you're interested, for sure. And so, again, if you listen to this podcast for the first time, go check out some of our other episodes. It's Crestview Lead. We're on all the major podcast providers. You can also find us on Facebook, City of Crestview's Facebook page, Instagram page, and YouTube. I always forget to say YouTube, and our YouTube page. Tell them how they can hear about the things going on at Northwest Florida State College.
Yeah, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. But nwfsc.edu, Northwest Florida State College, nwfsc.edu, and you can keep up with what we're doing.
Thanks again for coming out.
Thanks, Tim. Great to be here.
Yes, sir.